Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next book review. This one is going to be my review for Arcane Kingdom Online, Book 1, The Chosen by Jakob Tanner. If you're wondering why you're just reviewing this book in your channel when you usually do like Avatar stuff or other kind of topics, well, the main reason would be that the author actually emailed me and, wants to know would I be willing to review the book for like the review copy, and I just said like, sure, why not? Because it is a book in, I suppose, the sort of isekai genre, the same genre that like Sword Art Online is in, Rising of the Shield Hero, that sort of thing. You probably have seen an anime somewhere along the line that covers this genre of the character from the real world gets kind of sucked or somehow put into another world, usually some sort of a video game RPG style world, and this is one of those, except what's interesting of course here is this is not by like a Japanese author, it's by a Western author, and so I was interested to see what the take on this is, because I do like this genre in general. Full stop. So this is Arcane Kingdom Online. There's a better look at the cover. Obviously I read this on Kindle here. And yeah, the basic premise for this, without spoiling too much, I'm going to do a kind of non-spoiler review here, is that the main character is named Clay Hopewell, and he's 24 years old. And it's actually really interesting because I think like a lot of books in this genre, they do the thing of very quickly you go into the game. So there's not a ton of like real world setup before you're straight into the game, but it's interesting enough that like it remains in your head like the entire book of just how did the world get into this situation where this happened. Because what happens here is that he's just going through an airport, and they immediately establish that like everyone is getting scanned, and it's this really important thing that everyone gets scanned like at multiple points throughout their travels for this virus, the Zero virus. And he sees that everyone in the queue go through perfectly fine, and then when he goes through, it's revealed that he actually has the virus. And this is happening really, really quickly. He just goes through, immediately is taken away by like armed soldiers and put in this like, quarantine facility where immediately it looks like they're just leaving him there to just die. That they just stick these people in here to just die. The bodies pile up, but he is taken out. But before that, we do get a sense of, I suppose, what the virus actually is. It actually seems to be some sort of a virus that seems to borderline turn people into zombies. In that, like, I think this mentioned, like, their eyes go yellow and they become sort of like feral almost. They start attacking people and like biting and like scraping people. And he nearly gets killed by just this old woman kind of coming at him with this like kind of almost like super strength. But the soldiers kind of go back into the room and take him out because his family have found out that he has this virus and have found a way to sort of help him in some way. And this is where, of course, we get the whole how he's going to be transferred into the another world situation. And that is the name of the series, which is Arcane Kingdom Online. It's the new game that has just come out, and his mind can basically, his consciousness can be uploaded into this game. And it's revealed along the way that this is this only like elite people can do this. Like, this isn't available to anyone who gets it. He's lucky in that his brother, they don't go into it too much, but his brother has kind of connections and can get him one of the VR pods so he can actually do this. The game itself kind of, especially by the end of the book, and just the whole company making it, obviously becomes a kind of major plot point with regards to like, okay, what's actually going on here? Because they established that this is a game that has existed for a while. There's been a bunch of other games, but they've mainly been like single player. And Arcane Kingdom Online, specifically the online game, has been in development for like so many years. It's kind of there was big news about it, but then it stopped. It looked like the company just went bankrupt, and now all of a sudden the game is out. And it seems like the company put out like a kind of press release about this as well, that you can, if you're suffering from this virus, you can go into this game. And that's sort of like suspicious in of itself, that just they happen to have this ability to make this happen. And it makes you question stuff, especially with what kind of begins to happen later on. But for now, that just seems to be the case. He's just immediately taken there. There's a kind of quick goodbye scene with his family because it's purposefully meant to be quick, that it's super sudden. He's just kind of traveling on his own, and this disease happens. He can't be around his family that long because he's contagious, basically, and it just is just really, really sudden thing. A quick establishment of, I suppose, his relationship with his friends and family, and then boom, he's in the game. And they do establish that I think it's a 48-hour process to where you will immediately be like in the game playing it, but while your brain basically is being uploaded into the system, there is a chance that he could die throughout this whole thing. So if he can survive the first 48 hours within the game, he can live this sort of new life within the game. So they don't really say specifically that they're kind of just leaving his body to die. His body is gone at this point, that he is from now on going to only exist kind of in the virtual world or what. Because it only occasionally cuts out into what's happening in the real world through like messages that he gets within the game. But then some of the stuff that is revealed much later on, that's kind of more on the spoilery end of things, begins to sort of make you very suspicious of all of this. And if you are familiar with like SAO and stuff like that, it kind of feels a little bit like that, of just a sort of mysterious tech development going on, and then this company releases this game all of a sudden, and then there's this kind of big twist with it. It kind of feels like that, but a slightly different take on it, that borderline, it's like you could believe that, wait, to sort of make this game popular, given that they haven't released a game in a while, have they made this virus happen to sort of force people into playing the game, but something's gone very, very wrong? So it is this kind of unique kind of disease spreading around the world thing in real life, causing people to have to go into this game. Now, of course, in this first book, you don't get to meet a ton of people who are like humans uploaded into the game, I suppose players, because the focus is very much on introducing the main character to this, and then a couple of other, like, introduced to some NPCs, and then a few select players. But it's not like he's immediately encountering hundreds of other players. As the book seemed to establish, it is more of a kind of only the super high up people can do this. And so that obviously leaves the rest of the game open, because like obviously the scope exactly hasn't been explained exactly. We get a sense of these are all the races that you can play in the game, and there's like sub races within that. So there's still tons of the world that has to be explored. What happens here is very much just the sort of introductory quests of what's happening here. So that was definitely fun, because I think the biggest strength of this book is definitely how the writer does the, I suppose, game aspect of this, and how it's just kind of incorporated in that. I think the best example of this is if you've read any of the Rising of the Shield Hero light novels. It kind of feels a bit like that with regards to how the video game aspect is sort of introduced, with, you know, just the, I suppose here's a pretty good example on, like, say, this page. You can see there that it's just like in the middle of text, you know, HUD and notice the flashing buff under shade status bar, and then it just, you know, different style of paragraph to just get across, this is the way the ability is. And you'll see this like throughout the entire book with different things that happens. Like he gets a splinter in his foot at one point, the main character, and it comes up splinter debuff, and it's like, you know, this thing that will cut his health down gradually over time unless he takes the splinter out. And when he takes the splinter out, he gets a sort of he's improving his first aid skills, and everything like this seems to work. Like there's a really cool sequence a bit later on in the book, once he sort of gets a little bit settled and he starts to buy gear and so on, where the bartering system begins to come into play. And I like that it's just a simple thing of like, the guy offers him to sell him these items at this price. He says, what about this much? And then it comes up, bartering failed, but you get like, you know, a +1 boost to that. and then he keeps doing it, and eventually he gets a success. And it's just this fun idea of just the video game stuff is always remembered at every single point, whereas say in something like Sword Art Online, it doesn't try to overly like go crazy into the systems all that much, apart from just the basic menu stuff. But here, almost everything, you know, brings up menus and stuff like that. You know, new items. Here, when he gets like cut, you can see here it comes up bleeding, heavy, debuff, and then it explains what it is to him and what's going to happen. So it all feels like pretty well done. And then this is used sort of to the advantage in when I suppose what I consider to be the main unique plot point of this game, and that is the sort of glitches in this game that begin to come into play. In that when he first enters the world, you'd think he just will start in this town and be free to do what he wants, buy some stuff and hunt when he wants. But he actually starts this game in handcuffs next to an NPC, and they have to make their escape. And it is this like opening in action quest that he starts off with. He's severely underleveled, as is the NPC that he's with. And so it is this situation where they have to just find some way to escape, use items that are just around the place to fend off these kind of monsters that they're fighting. And they eventually do this, and what I liked in this first part of it was that he's taking tons of damage. Like, he nearly dies within the first like couple of seconds. But when they eventually do manage to kill one of them, they immediately level up. And the way it works in this game is that when you level up, your MP and your HP goes back to maximum, as well as getting this sort of stat boost as well. So that was that was used to, I think, good effect throughout this book, of just kind of adding this thing of like, if you can kill the monster and you know you're sort of going to get enough experience points to level up, you will be immediately healed and continue to go. So I thought that was fun, because he levels up a lot really early on, because they explain like that the leveling system to help newer players happens really quickly early on, and then kind of begins to slow down once you hit level 10. And so he's getting these constant, like, you know, health refills every time he levels up, and it helps him out a lot in these fights, because he chooses to go with a kind of mage-like character. He wants to get the mage class, but he initially starts off as just, you know, his race is a more magically based race. He chooses to go for an Agi Eldra, I think it is the specific one. Agi is the race, which is basically elves. And then Eldra is more of this kind of, they sort of use a bit of everything. Like, they don't choose one specific element of magic over the other, and they just incorporate them all together. And he begins to like learn these, I suppose, abilities unique to his race, and that's kind of part of the quest that he has to go on to actually unlock the mage class. And so, you know, it really feels like a game, because he's, you know, jumps in, the main story thing that he's left off is a quest. And then as he meets other people, these other quests sort of begin to activate. And then there's these kind of extra ones he can unlock depending on what class he wants to go with. But I got a little bit away from the point I was making there about the glitches. When they eventually get to defeating all of these enemies, they eventually fight the bandit leader. And they do manage to defeat him, like, just barely. Both of them are nearly killed. But what happens is that as they basically take its health down to 0, it changes, and like a glitch happens, and it basically returns to life. The model that it is in the game just starts to change, and like it has like aspects of other monsters like on it, and it just touches Clay and kills him immediately, and it's just immediate death, game over. But they establish that he is one of the chosen within the game, so he can actually survive death. He just, when he comes back, loses any experience gained to the next level, but maintains the level, and there's like a debuff on him of like, you know, your MP recharges slower, your health recharges slower for the next 6 hours, and there is a penalty to death. And he talks about how like the kind of darkness in a way of experiencing like just nothingness for the certain amount of time that he was gone before he sort of respawned in the game. So it kind of adds this thing of like, he doesn't want to die in the game because he doesn't want to experience that again, even though there's no like SAO, you know, you die in the game, you die in real life kind of for good type thing. just yet. It adds a significance to death while also allowing you to do something with the whole idea of like reincarnating characters, I suppose. But yeah, and then this kind of quest begins to develop around this glitched boss, basically. And they show it in those kind of screens I was showing you there about the game information, that even the game doesn't have a correct way to explain what exactly that monster is. It has this, like, instead of like Skrull Bandit Leader or something like that, it's like SK @ you know, question mark, you know, exclamation mark sort of stuff. It's just complete gibberish in the code because it doesn't have a proper name, because it's a mix of all this other stuff. And then it had this whole instant kill ability. And what happens is that it leaves this kind of black mark on his wrist, and that becomes this very important thing to him in terms of, this is suddenly the unique kind of main character ability of this game, and it becomes like interlinked with these glitches within the game and like other characters who also have them. Again, I don't want to spoil the full details of that because I think it's one of the cooler reveals within the book, when the full scope of, I suppose, what exactly that is comes out, and like, why does he have it compared to like the other people who have it, and it suddenly adds this extra thing to the game, because why does this new game that's doing all this important stuff have glitches in it, and why do they seem to get worse and worse as things go on? And this is when they begin to like incorporate little bits and pieces of what's actually going on in the real world. Like, of course, the type of story that is, he survives the upload process, but if this infection is spreading around the world and more people are dying or having to go into this game, what, you know, how can they actually keep this game running effectively? How can they update the game effectively if it's that bad in the real world? And then you sort of ask the question of like, what if basically everyone is wiped out? No one's really keeping track of the game, you know, what's going to happen then? So there's this kind of mystery around, like, he's now in the game for good, because they more or less seem to establish that like there's no real hope for him getting back out of here, because his body, they never really establish if his body can be healed in any way, or like if a cure can be found for this, because his mind is being uploaded and he could have been killed in the process. But like, is there anything that can be sort of solved within the game that can affect things in the real world? And I like that there's a bit of a mystery about, you don't really know if we're meant to care a massive amount about what's going on in the real world, or if it is an actual mystery being set up about what is to come. Because I think, in addition to really liking how the game stuff is presented in the book, I do like that premise of this disease that basically causes people to have to go into this game like full time. And then what it seems to be doing to the game, plus a lot of the mysteries around the company and why this game has been in development for so long, why, you know, it's suddenly now, when this disease is active, that the game has been launched and seemingly has this ability to have people come into it. Plus some of the stuff they do later on with the idea that there are actually players in this game who are crazy leveled and would have had to have been in here prior to the game launching, and the mystery surrounding that. If there's any weakness to the book, I'd say it's just that character-wise, it's a little light on like character development, character arc stuff. Just because it is primarily introductory, heavy world building here. And so like our main character Clay, the other girl who also gets her mind transferred in as well, Serena, who Clay actually knew from before, and now they're sort of reuniting here in this game. There's not a ton of depth there. Like with Clay, what you get is that like he dropped out of college, and because both of his parents were professors, that was seen as this this almost betrayal of their sort of trust in a way, and he doesn't have a particularly great relationship with them because of that. And you know, a lot of it seems like a lot of that is that he chose to specifically stay away from them after he made this decision. So it's kind of almost like a relationship, like he did this himself and hasn't done anything to sort of reconnect with them. So he's trying his best in the game to sort of take the opposite route than he took in his real life, of you know, he wants to be, you know, a mage, so he's taking a more sort of scholarly approach that he didn't take in his real life. It's not focused upon all that much. And similarly, Serena as well, she seems to get across the idea that she was much quieter in the real world, would probably choose to take a back row seat in terms of what character she makes, but here she decides to do something very different and take on a frontline player. She kind of becomes a tank build with a giant sword and so on. So they get across that idea of, in a way, like rebuilding a different approach to life here with this second chance. But there's not a lot of depth just yet with, like, okay, what does all this stuff that they're now suddenly revealing to Clay, what does that mean for him now that he's the chosen in a way? So I'm waiting to see what the, like, arc is and what the main, I suppose, in-game plot is outside of just, this is your new life. Like, will anything that happens in the game, are they trying to solve anything with the game? Are they trying to solve anything in the game that will affect what's going on the outside, or find some way to get out and fix things? Questions like that is sort of like what I'm still wondering about. But it is the case where I wouldn't be overly critical on that, just because it is the first book, and I think those questions are purposeful rather than just it's bad character stuff. And it is just a case of, like, this was meant to be more world building than, you know, presenting character arcs immediately. Some of the characters they introduced later on are more interesting. There's a kind of mage guy called Theobald who, just with some of the details to reveal about him, adds a lot of, you know, interesting dynamics to the world. I suppose coming to the end of the review here, I'd just say that seemingly what is the first novel book from this author, it stood as being, like, really well done to me, in that reading this after, like, I suppose fairly recently reading a lot of the Rising of the Shield Hero light novels, I don't notice any, like, huge, like, difference in quality all that much, really, or anything like that. Like, it feels like this is absolutely just a book in that genre. It has its own unique takes. Shield Hero has its own takes. SAO has its own takes, and it really, I think, sort of stands up with them a bit. Like I said, maybe not as much character stuff as the other two, but it does more on the game world building side of things, and like all of them, has an interesting premise with regards to how the character, what happens to the character to kind of force him to have to enter this world. And if there's a lot of information about that, I think this could be a very interesting series. As far as I'm aware, the first 2 books are out of this series now, released. You can get them on, like, Kindle download. I think there's an audiobook as well. I listened to the excerpt, the free excerpt that was there on Amazon, and there is a paperback version available as well. So it's not going to be a difficult book to get if you're interested in it. And in general, I would say that I do recommend this book. So yeah, as for length and stuff like that, I probably read this in about, like, an hour and a half or so. It might have been 2 hours. I didn't really keep track of time all that much, but one sitting from start to finish, I got through this very, very quickly. It was easy to read, no interruptions, and held my attention throughout. Didn't notice any, like, editing problems in terms of, like, spelling and stuff like that. I think there was maybe, like, one word that, like, it was like, it was like, there was one word where it was like, it should have been the, like, ED version instead of just the kind of singular E. But I got what it meant from context. But, you know, compare that to, like, some of the, like, Shield Hero novels where there's tons of, like, typography errors throughout and stuff like that. This was, I think, felt, you know, really, really good quality. So yeah, I recommend this book. And yeah, it was just kind of something I wanted to do to review more books on my channel, because obviously the Avatar Kyoshi book is coming out soon. I wanted to get more used to doing novels. Like I did the Star Wars book a week or 2 ago. So, you know, I just wanted to do this because this random email came in and I just decided, you know, why not? It's a genre I like, and the book turned out to be actually really, really interesting. So yeah, Arcane Kingdom Online, Book 1, The Chosen. I recommend it, and I think it's a good book. So that's been the review. Thanks for watching, and bye.